Next time you find a pair of pants that fit perfectly in every way except the length, story of my life, go ahead, buy them.
And we're short people. We run into these problems all the time.
We're going to show you how you can hem them yourself.
Yes, and we're doing so with Tess Poe. She's the owner of Beehive Sewing in Northampton. Hello, Tess Poe.
Hi, nice to be here.
So it's a hem lesson today.
It's a hem lesson today. Do you know the 3 P's of hemming? This is how we're going to start.
Wait a minute, I bet I can guess some.
Perfectly pleasing pants. No.
Yes, also, how about patience?
Patience is one.
Is it really? Okay.
I'm shocked that Seth got it right.
Pins.
Pinning,
Son of a gun. Seriously?
pressing,
Oh, you told me?
and patience.
Oh,
I would have
pinning.
guessed pressing
That's it.
if I had enough time. We got 2 of the 3, not bad.
Right.
So that's the 3 P's.
So that's the 3 P's. Important because a lot of people want to rush through a hem. They, especially when they're at the sewing machine, they might, try to cut some corners. When it comes to hemming, you don't want to do that because it really is going to be disappointing.
Because if you sew the pant legs together, forget it.
No.
That's it. You can't
It's
get
going
your,
to be
can't
a
get your leg
stocking
in.
for Christmas.
Brand
Exactly.
new. You store a lot of things in your pants.
That's right. So the first hem that we're going to talk about is a pretty traditional double fold hem. It's the hem you'd find on your jeans. It's the hem that you'll find on your khakis, chinos. Do people use that word still?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So if you have a look at Ashley's skirt over there, you'll see that's got a nice double fold hem and it's got 2 rows of stitching along the bottom. We're going to go ahead and hem a pair of pants, just some kind of everyday casual slacks. These are my husband's pants. He asked if I was going to cut them on air and I said yes, and he's horrified. So hopefully we won't make any mistakes. But
This is about to get interesting.
here's how we go ahead with starting our hem. The first thing that you want to do is take a tool called a gauge. So a gauge is something that's about 6 inches long, it's flat metal, and it's got a slider on it. And what that slider lets us do is set a nice physical distance, almost like a little stopper, so that we can take really accurate measurements. The first thing that we want to do is measure the original hem. So we want to see how much are we folding up so that we don't cut our pants too short. So on these pants, Carson's got them folded up and pinned. I'm going to flip this inside out, and if you can see here, we can see with our gauge that the stitching line is a ½ inch from the fold.
The original hem.
The original hem. So we want to replicate that. We don't need to do a lot of thinking, and we don't need to start looking at books and finding a pattern for what kind of crazy hem we might do. Just copy what you got. The next
Which
thing
is usually simple, right?
Exactly. The next thing that we're going to do is start to use our seam ripper and cut open that existing hem. So this is our seam ripper, and we're going to be pretty careful when we do that because we certainly don't want to cut through the fabric. But we're going to take our seam ripper and open up the existing hem so that we can find out how much fabric is folded underneath there. And here we can see with our gauge, we'll measure that, and we can see that this is 3/8 of an inch. So that tells us that we need to make sure that wherever we cut our pants, we're going to need a ½ inch and another 3/8 of an inch so that we can fold it up.
Oh.
This makes sense.
See,
now.
I thought it was just as simple as folding it in and stitching, but there's a lot to it.
There's something to it.
There's something to it.
There's
On a
not too
scale
much.
of 1 to 10, can this be a beginner project? If someone's at home and they're looking and they're saying, I really want to change the look on my pants, can they do this?
Do
with
it.
Okay.
Do it.
You can do it.
I wouldn't do it on real expensive suit pants. That's a more advanced kind of a hem. But if you have a pair of khakis, you have a casual pair of pants, there's no reason that you can't go ahead and do that hem.
But that gauge tool is definitely important to have if you want to do
The
this.
gauge is great. This is a really inexpensive sewing tool. A lot of people remember their grandmothers having this or their moms having this. A lot of people at Beehive say, I've seen that before, but I don't know what it does. And it really is the greatest tool you can have for hems. So we've gone ahead. I've drawn a chalk line where I've measured from where Carson wanted the pants to be. So I've drawn a chalk line where I'm going to cut the pants off. And on casual pants, like khakis, again, on jeans, those are just going to be straight across. I mentioned suit pants. Suit pants, you might notice they kind of maybe dip down in the back. So you don't want to, make a mistake with those.
That's more of an advanced maneuver, though.
Exactly.
Okay.
These kinds of casual pants, you're going to just end up just cut them straight off. So we're going to go ahead and do that with our rotary cutter. And we're cutting on a self-healing mat here, so we're not going to worry about damaging our table. If you don't have a self-healing mat, that's okay. You can go ahead and use a pair of scissors.
Oh, well, that's nice and easy, huh? Look at that.
Wow.
So we cut the pants off. He can never get them back, so hopefully this is going to be okay.
Unless you want some weird patchy pants.
Right.
But,
And now I'm going to throw it over to you guys because you're standing here by the iron, so we're coming up to pressing. That's going to be the most important first part of our hemming process.
Gurgling at me.
one of the P's.
One of the P's. You'll see that we're using this tiny little ironing board.
So cute.
It's adorable, isn't it? It's like a
Yeah.
Barbie ironing board. This is called a sleeve board, and it's great for things like, look at that. Pants legs. So I'm going to flip this inside out to make it a little bit easier for folks to see. But this is where we're going to use that gauge and make sure that we're folding first that 3/8 of an inch, and we're going to press all around. So let's go ahead. Ashley, this will be your gauge test.
Oh dear.
Tessa's husband might have funky pants.
We're setting it
Sorry, Carson.
3/8 of an inch.
Yep.
And now we're just going to fold our fabric and use that gauge to push the fabric into place. So now we can see that that's our 3/8 of an inch.
Yep.
And if I check with my gauge, we can see that that's my 3/8.
Perfect.
And then you'll go ahead, take your iron, and pressing is different from ironing. So we're not going to rub all over our pants. We're literally just going to press and make sure that that fabric.
Watch your fingers, Ashley.
Oh, out of your way.
Just
And
press.
you're just pressing. You don't need to use any steam right now. You may need to use some steam later. One of the biggest differences between your factory-made pants and homemade clothing is pressing. Your factory-made clothes have undergone a great deal of pressing, so don't be afraid with that iron.
Okay.
Caveat for that, of course, is don't do that on chiffon, don't do that on silk, don't do that on those kinds of fabrics that clearly are not designed for high heat and a lot of pressing.
So we're double checking the hem.
Yep.
Press. So similarly, you go all around the whole thing, do it once, and then the same process again to get that 1/2 inch, right?
Exactly. So let's pretend that we went all the way around.
Okay.
And we'll go ahead and do our next fold. You don't want to do both folds at the same time because it will get all, get all kind of twisted up and it won't lay flat, and that's not ideal. So now you want to go ahead and measure a 1/2 inch. So you want to slide that little metal slider to the 1/2 inch. Perfect.
Yep.
And check to see that you've got a 1/2 inch.
Yep, perfect.
And now press.
Here we go.
Take away with, what was I going to say?
I don't even know. Take it away? Is that what we're doing?
Take it away with the
Oh, we are both sleepy.
Here's
Okay.
some rubbing going on. Not really
No,
necessary.
don't-
That's
just
a
press.
good one.
Test Poe, you're the
Press,
fourth,
let it
you're the
go.
fourth P.
I'm the fourth
Pressing,
P.
pinning, patience, Poe.
And then
I need
here
some
we have our
coffee.
pins. So we're going to go ahead and just put some
Oh,
pins
there's the
in
pins.
here. And then we'll take that over to the sewing machine. Couple things I want to say about changes that you might want to make to your sewing machine in order to do a nice hem. The first is going to be, do you want to go and check again with the gauge?
Oh, I thought we're not going all the way around.
We're not going to
just-
go all the way around.
We're
just-
good, we're good.
We're good.
Well, you know what?
Okay, so we're just about out of time, Tess.
So we'll put the pins in, then we'll come back in a little bit. We're going to hem this, but also
With Tess Poe, she's the owner of Beehive Sewing in Northampton. Now, earlier we were talking about the
A double fold hem.
fold hem.
Yep.
Now, before we get to the blind hem stitch, let's just finish that up really quick.
Real quick, I'm just going to go ahead and do a couple stitches here so you can see what I'm doing, and I'm going to take my work out. You'll notice that on the sewing machine that I've taken off what's called my free arm. And that's this piece of plastic so that I can get that cuff of that hem over the machine.
Right.
So you'll see that all I did was go ahead and top stitch. I used a little bit of a longer stitch length, so be sure that you make some changes to the settings in your sewing machine. Use a coordinating color thread. I'm using white so that you can see the hem right here.
For TV.
For TV.
Yeah, not the most stylish
Carson and I
call,
will take this out and then redo it with blue thread. But it's as simple as that. So
Very simple.
very simple. Let's talk about the blind hem. A little bit less simple, but great either way. So let's have a look at, this is a pair of pants that I turned into Bermuda shorts, but this is the bottom of those original pants. And you'll see that these have what's called a blind or an invisible hem. Typically that's done by hand. That's the old school way. Nowadays, we try to do it on the machine because it's a bit quicker. So how do we do this? First thing that we're gonna do is measure, just like we did before. Use our gauge, measure.
does that mean I'm de-stitching?
You can start de-stitching if you'd like. You don't have to go through that step.
Oh, well, then
'cause
let's skip it.
We'll go right through it.
Let's skip it entirely.
The next thing we want to do, so let's, we have a couple samples here. We're going to pretend this is the one that we've just opened it up. We've marked where we want our hem. We do need to do something to the edge of that fabric because it's not double folded. So we need to either serge it like I've done. If you don't have a serger at home or have access to one at a community sewing studio, you can go ahead and use your zigzag. So you can do some overcasting, and that sort of takes the place of the serging.
But that serging and zigzag more or less finishes off an edge so you don't have the fray.
Exactly.
I get
That's
you.
exactly. You're getting so good at this,
I'm
Seth.
learning
I'm
slowly.
impressed. So here's how the blind hem works. The blind hem requires us to Z-fold our fabric. So I'm going to take out this pin and hope that you can kind of see the letter Z.
I get it. Okay.
So if you can see what's going on here, we have the letter Z, we have our serged edge, and what we're going to do is stitch right along that fold. The stitch that we're going to use is common on a lot of sewing machines, and it's a stitch that is going to go in a straight line, and then it's going to jog over just a touch. So we're mainly going to be stitching right along this serged edge, and then every so often that needle is going to hop over and grab just a little bit of that fold.
So you're not seeing, there's maybe 1 in every 3 stitches is the outer fold that's seen to the naked eye.
Precisely. So let's throw this in the machine and go ahead and do that. I will say the blind hem takes a good bit of practice. You want to start out using your wheel. So when you use your hand wheel, you want to make sure that you're not catching too much of that fold. What happens when we catch too much of that fold is we get a really visible kind of line on our fabric.
Which is the opposite of what we want to do.
Exactly. So I'm going to go super fast here, probably make a couple of mistakes, and then you can see what not to do. And then I'll show you one that I did a lot more slowly where you can see what you should do. But this is really great because a lot of our, dressier business casual clothing, things from Ann Taylor and Banana Republic, these are going to have blind hems. Many times if they are lined, then you'll just have a traditional double fold hem on whatever the lining is. So we've gone ahead, we've done our stitching, and now the magic, we're going to open it up.
Oh,
and if I were using a coordinating color thread, if I were using a brown thread, you would just see a little dot of thread every so often. And you can see here on this sample, these are a bit more visible, these lines here. So those, those aren't great. You want to avoid that.
It's a B+ job.
It's a B+ job. That's exactly the grade I would give it. So if you catch too much of that fold as you're stitching, that's where you get that little line, and that's not so ideal. What you may have noticed too, as I was stitching, I am stitching on the inside of the garment. So I'm not top stitching. That's something that's a little bit different from the double fold. When I was doing these pants, we were looking at the outside of the fabric. We were looking at the good side or the right side of the fabric. I also want to point out that one of the things that folks often forget when they're using the sewing machine, you get so excited because you have the foot pedal and it's going so fast, and that's great.
Well, you're not driving a car, so.
You're not driving a car. But when you get to that side seam, that's a time when you really want to use that hand wheel and make those stitches manually. Because
I didn't know that's what that was on the end there.
So how did you not know that?
I don't know.
You've done so much sewing in the past. I'm surprised here.
Now you know.
I've been doing a lot of sewing.
The hand wheel does exactly what the foot pedal does, just without the electricity. So we can make stitches. We can do this all day long. It would take
you get a nice little arm workout.
You would get a nice arm workout. But it is really important when you're hemming. We see a lot of folks coming in, hemming pants, hemming jeans especially. When you get to that side seam, that's a lot of thickness of fabric there.
Yes.
And any machine, a brand new machine, a terrific, expensive machine, is going to sort of have a hiccup when it gets to that difference in the thickness of the fabric.
Well, Tess, this is, if I never do this ever in my life, I have at least a lot of respect for what you do. Really, seeing how it's done and how much goes into it and measuring, and I'm fascinated. It really is a talent and a skill, and I have a lot of respect for what you do.
Well, that's so sweet.
It's wonderful.
That's
great. Yes, and hopefully one day I'll be able to get my hands in there and try it.
You'll try
Hopefully I'll be as good as you.
Thanks
so much, Ted.
You're welcome.